Ambassador Taylor, thank you for taking the time to talk to VOA Persian. Nada al-Nashif, Deputy High Commissioner for Human Rights, visited Tehran in the past few days. Many urged her to postpone her visit or meet with those on death row during her stay in Iran. What's your take on her trip, and what do you expect to hear from her?
Sure. First of all, I want to just, for the record, say that I also expressed the U.S. concern about such a visit. We had similar concerns, frankly, when Michele Bachelet chose to go to Xinjiang, that these kinds of visits can be used by the country visited as a way to try and legitimize their own situation and negate the real human rights concerns on the ground. I haven't seen any reporting coming out of her visit yet. We will be paying very, very close attention, and certainly would be very disappointed if anything about the visit implied that the human rights situation in Iran is improved in any way. We would have much rather seen the fact-finding mission or special rapporteur have access to Iran than to have a visit from OHCHR with sort of nebulously described desired outcomes.
So you hope that it won't impact the fact-finding mission?
I mean, of course, our hope would be that the effect would be some access by the fact-finding mission, but certainly it should in no way imply that the fact-finding mission's work is done or that there isn't still an urgent need for such an entity.
Some foreign-based Iranian human rights groups have said the Islamic Republic executed more than 700 prisoners last year. Mohammad Qobadlu was the 9th person to be executed in connection with the Women's Life Freedom Movement. What's the U.S. position on this alarming trend?
I mean, our numbers are that it's nearly 800 is what we've heard that were executed in 2023. This is up 37% from the reported number in 2022 of 581, which was already abhorrent. So, of course, we're terribly concerned. Reports are that there were at least 25 women that were executed, and just so tragically and unacceptably potentially 2 or more juveniles. We know at least 2. So, it's very clear that Iran uses the death penalty as a deterrent to any kind of dissent and truly as a way to take away people's right to freedom of expression.
And what can the Council do to increase the pressure on Tehran to stop this trend?
So I think, first of all, we have to call it out for exactly what it is, which is a absolutely failed judicial system that lacks practically any accountability and is really there to install fear in the people and, as I said, to quash opposition. The example that you gave of Mohammad Qobadlu in connection with the Women's Life Freedom Movement, which, of course, we will always speak out for the rights of women. And the fact that people in Iran cannot do that is just horrifying. In that case, he had a documented mental health condition. A higher court even overturned the conviction and sentence, and yet he was still executed.
Ambassador Taylor, will you share the No to Executions hashtag?
I'll certainly speak out about the importance of stopping these executions and sham trials in Iran and the use of executions to quash voices and dissent. We don't usually engage in specific measures like that unless we understand exactly where they're coming from, but I would be happy to look into it.
Ambassador Taylor, Human Rights Watch said at least 11 prisoners in Iran are at imminent risk of execution, most of whom are Kurdish. Why do you think Iran has been the world's top executioner for decades?
Well, we know already 4 Iranian Kurdish political prisoners have been put to death, men who were forcibly disappeared, were denied legal counsel for as much as 18 months. According to NGO sources, we know that forced confessions were exacted through torture, and we understand that that is ongoing. And look, we have to continue to draw attention to this and then use the tools at our disposal, things like sanctions and visa restrictions against individuals, so that we can all make it very clear that we will not tolerate this kind of abuse of the judicial system and of course the abhorrent use of the death penalty.
So what is common between Iran and China as top executioners?
Sure. I mean, in both places, the ability to speak freely is hampered at best and non-existent in some cases. And again, the use of the death penalty, not as punishment for the most egregious crimes, but as a deterrent for basic human rights like freedom of expression is certainly something that we see in common.
Some say that the US is also using capital punishment. How do you respond to that?
But there is no equivalency. We absolutely cannot make any kind of moral comparison. In stark contrast, the US system, we are committed to due process, we are committed to legal representation and to the right of appeal. And in Iran, none of those things exist. So often, any trial that might take place happens behind closed doors. People are not given the right to adequate representation and really any sense of a fair judicial system is just non-existent.
And lastly, what's your position on female officials visiting Iran wearing a headscarf as Iranian authorities demand them to do?
Look, the United States believes fully in freedom of religion or belief or lack of belief and the ability to express that. If a woman wants to wear a headscarf, absolutely she should wear a headscarf. But we do not believe that that decision should be made for any woman, whether a woman who lives in Iran or a woman who is visiting Iran or anywhere in the world for that matter.
Ambassador Taylor, thank you. We'll be in touch as the fact-finding mission proceeds with its work. Thank you.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to talk with you, and we are committed to making sure that fact-finding mission does continue.